Hello, it's Xavier down the bottom of the garden, and we're just about to start a 2-week heat wave. So yeah, that's something unusual for Britain. We're also now just been told that we've got no Prime Minister. Well, we have, but good old Boris has finally thrown in the cardboard box. Anyway, more importantly, it's Japanese White Pine. I've had this since 2002. It was one of the first trees that I actually purchased, and I think I purchased it for about, I think it was £45. It was half the size, and it's fair to say I didn't have a clue how to deal with it, and it scared me. So as a result of that, it spent 5 or 6 years just sitting in the garden, getting overgrown and completely and utterly out of shape. And then I got around to looking at it, and I think it was Bonsai Mirai, again Ryan Neal, who was the first of the ones who really showed me or gave me an idea how these things actually work. So without stealing his thunder, I'm going to attempt to give you a guide. So Japanese White Pine, it's a long needle, which means these needles go long relatively, 5 needle pine. It's often grafted onto I think it's black pine stock, because it's a stronger pine stock, and then the white pine is grafted onto it, and often you'll get some really ugly scars. But here, to be perfectly honest, I can't actually see a graft, and someone once suggested that it's actually just maybe pure white pine. You get this lovely bark. Yeah. So anyway, so 5 needle pine. Out of the 5 needle pine group, and I think these include things like limber pine and the species you tend to find in the States, this one, the needles harden off quicker. So in the post-flush hardening, I'm probably in the latter stage of it. Normally around mid-June, they harden off, and when they harden off, that's when you can do your candle work. If you try to prune candles or reduce candle lengths traditionally the same time you might do other pines, like your Scots pine or anything, if the sheath hadn't dropped, i.e. the sheath that encloses the needles hasn't actually dropped, then all that will do is prompt the tree to increase the size of the needles, so you'll just get longer needles, which is why Japanese white pine is the one that we don't do any candle pinching in the spring. But instead, in early summer, what we do is we look for the period when these sheaths drop, and basically the sheaths are like these little brown, don't know if you can see, but they're the little brown covers that actually cover those needle pairs. And often if you just shake your hand or shake the needle, give it a little tumble, you'll see, I don't know if you'll see in there, in my hand there's those little brown cases. Right, when those cases drop or released, then that's telling you that those needles won't get any bigger. So that will be the size that those 5 needles will be. So you can then happily do some candle reduction if you need to. And this is something you'll be looking at for a tree that's in refinement. So you are looking at something that, 30, 40 years old, or the shape is there or what you want. Caveat I would say is if your tree is recently recovered, which is this one, then the last thing you want to do is reduce anything that's going to be giving the tree more energy. And remember, each set of these needles is where the solar panels are for this tree. If you were in a much more healthier, vigorous tree, what you'll be looking at for is within these individual candles, you've got your yellowing leaves here. They're just yellowing tips. They'll be probably your 3rd year needles, and they should just pull away quite easily. You can remove those. Then you'll get the next crop, which is nearer the point of the new growth. They're your 2nd year needles. They don't come away, so you leave them. But your actual new candle, you can see it here, is represented here, and you can see all these new all these new needle pairs, and they all come out from junctions within that candle. So long you leave a couple of these leaf pairs, these needle pairs, you can actually cut through wherever in that candle you want. Now this is a particularly short candle, but on some of the more vigorous trees here you might see it slightly longer. But as I say, this is a recovering tree, so most of the candles are relatively short, so I wouldn't be cutting them. But what you would do is, ignoring those needles, you would go to this point, and say that candle length is, a centimetre. You could cut halfway in there, removing the top half or the top third of those needles, leaving 2, 3, 4 needle pairs there. And what will happen is you should then encourage two latent buds will come from the tip, or you'll get some back budding happening on these trees. If you leave it any longer than 2, maybe 3 weeks after those sheaths have dropped, then don't do it, because by that stage it's already starting to harden off the candle. So if you do it then, you're not going to get new buds developing, and in effect you're going to destroy the tip of the pine. Well, you'll put it back. If you actually need to do any work like that, you wait until the autumn, and we'll do a whole thing on autumn pruning. So this time of the year is literally all about candle management, removing some of your older needles and just having a look where things are. I won't do any pruning away of branch or structures. As I say, that will happen in the fall. What I might do is just go around, do a bit of cleaning up. If I had a really healthy tree, this one 2 years ago, the candles were massive, then you'd be cutting the candles back to fit in with the profile that you want. So we'll just go around and have a look. I mean, originally this was the pot that it was in, and it had been in this pot for 5 years, and it maybe 2.5, 3 years ago, I noticed that there was no real growth happening, and an investigation of the roots, I think there's a picture that'll come up, showed a really fine, filmy, white, cobwebby business going on in there. I didn't properly identify. I think it was one of the nasty things for Japanese white pine, and to be fair, I was convinced it was going to die. So I put it in this great big pot, emergency repot, last year, and despite my views, it has seemed to have thrived. So because I knew it was sick, I've absolutely no intention of doing anything much to it. But there's some cleaning up work that can happen, some broken old branches which I can trim and cut back, but really I don't want to do anything that may impact the renewed vigour, because the roots in this was completely and utterly destroyed, really were. So I want as much energy coming from that going in there. So that's the main thing. So if you were looking to do any pruning, it's candles, and really I wouldn't recommend any sort of structural branch cuts now. I'd be waiting until the autumn. Main rule: do not pinch candles in the spring. Wait until mid-June to July, when those sheaths have dropped. Once they drop, you've got 2 to 3 weeks to get any candle pruning done. Okay. I know you're probably disappointed. You probably wanted to see me do lots of cutting and stuff on that. I won't risk it. I won't. And that's the biggest lesson ever with trees. If it's sick in any way, especially if it's something like this, which, to be honest, they're nearly impossible to get. I think I wired it a couple of years ago. Very slow growing. Taking some branches off, healing up. Beautiful tree. Okay, so the other example is the only other way I've found to get white pine without spending an absolute fortune is to go to your trusty nurseries. And to be fair, in all of Lincoln I've only found one nursery that actually ever seems to stock Japanese white pine in a plant pot as a garden plant, and I bought 2 of these 3 years ago, and I think there were 10 there they had. I think I paid £15 for them, and believe it or not, this was one of the best graft joints. I mean, it's a terrible grafting joint, you can see right clear there, but I think this is the black pine stock, and then the white pine's grafted on. The graft is really appalling. It's still very soft bark, showing it's quite a young tree. I've wired it again. It's been wired for I think 18 months now, and it's what I call sort of fit. Sort of fit, yeah. I haven't really got the final wiring shape in place. This is the first one of these I've ever really played with from scratch. All I'm trying to do is get the candles facing upwards. But again, with this one, it's still in development. We've got some basic branch structure starting, but nowhere near what I'd be looking for. So what I want is the energy to go into the roots, which means again with this one, I want this one to just keep on growing. I want the candles to extend. Again, there's only a small, just here, probably 4 or 5 millimeters worth of bud there, and there's lots of pairs coming from it. So all I will do is wait until the autumn, and that's when I'll start doing some selection and thinning out. But at the moment, all I want this to do is gain energy. It's well and truly under development. All the energy needs to be getting those roots going. So unfortunately, from a Japanese white pine sense, that's as much as you're going to see me do with them. You can see there's a great big mass on this. 1, 2, 3. But yeah, I don't want to risk damaging anything. Got a few here. They didn't open up. You see you've just got the brown heads, which tells you that whole top half of the tip's going to die, but beneath it there's a couple of needle masses, so that's good. Each of them has some needle masses on it, so I'm just going to let it go. Okay, this next little bit I'm doing for Tony of Tony's Bonsai, and he did mention his love of sycamores and ash, so I did say I had a few, and although they're not great big trunks like he was talking about, big monsters I'm sure, I thought I'd show you, because what I do with sycamores is the exact opposite of what they really want to do. I keep them all as a Mame style, and this is one of them, and I've got about 4 or 5 that I've done exactly the same thing, little pop, very simple, and I find with these, keep them simple, and it makes it easier to give you an idea of I don't know what I was going with that one, but yeah, in the end I keep them small, and then I've either got the option of this could be one branch here. I could just have one leaf and just keep one leaf and do that, so each leaf would represent a leaf pad. But what I do, leaves have been removed twice this year, so this is going for the 3rd leaf removal, and what I'm looking for is the smaller leaves before I do it. Now in this instance I'm actually happy with the size. This was the first flush of the growth, which I removed. I think I removed this flush in sometime in either very early May, I think it was early May, and you had great big leaves like this on the thing, and literally cut them, and normally you'll just start seeing the new growth coming up underneath. Cut every big leaf off and let that new growth go, and then if you get another big leaf coming through, just let that growth go. But as you see there, it creates this lovely little canopy, and the leaves are at least half the size, and I guarantee I will probably remove a couple more of these leaves at some point. Keep it like this. But the thing I do is, if I want the trunk to go, I've got a couple that I'm just letting it go because I want to increase trunk thickness. But with these, because they're such big leaves, I'm trying to treat them as a feminine form, which is slim, and mind you, I'm allowed to say feminine means slim because I'm probably going to offend someone. If I have, I'm sorry. I'm not feminine because I'm not slim. Yeah, but if you look here, you've already got buds, 2 buds here and here. There's 2 more up there, and the chances are, I mean that one's, I may actually, that's just died actually, now that I've just done that, so I'll rub that off. You can either rub them off, or if you think, well actually I may actually take this even lower down, and cut back to there, and let these 2 develop out. So there's actually quite a lot of options you can do, and they show you where they're going to bud from, and they bud profusely and they back bud profusely, which means if you're trying to take the big tree and take it down smaller and smaller, you can literally cut it down, as I think Tony will probably find out, and start from a really low point. And looking at that, as I say, with these buds here and here, there is a temptation next to cut here. So maybe that'll be one of the jobs you'll see me do with that in the autumn, is once we've lost the foliage, I might make decisions like that. But right now, I'm really happy with how that looks. Now, the other tree I talked about, what he's mentioned, was the ash. Ash have a compound leaf, and I don't know whether I'd actually released the video I did of pruning these. You may find there'll be a video that sort of fills in the summer which shows me pruning these. Compound leaf, which means, as you say, you get the 4 parts of the leaf pair, so the whole leaf is all 4 pairs. So if you do partial defoliation, you cut 2 of them off, and that's how I manage these. So I might keep the longer ones at 3, like here, 3 sets of leaves. As I get higher up, I'll go to 2, and then the same here. But what I am doing is, by partial defoliation, is encouraging this small flush of growth. So what I'll do now is, because I've got that growth, I'll remove those. There's a little bit of growth there, so I'm going to remove that one. There is a little bit of growth, so I might just remove that. And where I've actually obviously got signs of the new flush coming through, there's no signs of it there. Some browning on this, which means we're probably not getting anything through there. Brown on there, but yeah, and it's just looking, and so I'll continually watch the tree, and as soon as I think I've got a next set of flush coming out, I'll let it go. So, you know, from your design, you've got a nice sort of shape. Taper isn't so brilliant, but as I'm sure Tony might say, great point to cut is probably here. And then you've got this lovely natural taper. And that's not to say that I may not actually go down that route, but again, they're decisions I'll make in the autumn. But I find with ash, especially with the compound leaf, if you use good use of partial defoliation, which is removing some of the leaf pairs, and just seeing where all these little black buds are, and just pruning to them. So that's all about your pruning decisions before the buds open up. So that's one, and I'll show you one I finished earlier. This one, I think it was in the spring catwalk I did. Great big long thing, it's nowhere near the finished product. Dawn Isaac ceramic, same thing here. They're all kept at 3 and 2. The same here, going further up, there's only 2 on the leaves. But you can see here, we've now got this growth here, so I'm going to remove that. Looking at that, we've got little buds there, little shoots there, so I'm actually going to remove that. Where else? We've got little growth there, what we've got here. So I'm always dictated by whether or not we've got, looks like a shoot coming up there. Right, there's no other shoots coming up, so I'll leave that for now. But what that means, I've managed to reduce this side. And truthfully, what will happen is in the autumn I can see myself cutting back to here, cutting back here, and you could do it now, to be honest. It just redirects the energy, but if I was going to make that decision, I'd have probably done it a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, so you know, it's more challenging. Yeah, so they present more of a challenge, but again, with the pruning techniques and skills you've got, you can create some pretty impressive trees, and it may not be everyone's cup of tea. Where does that line come from? I wonder if Andrew knows. Andrew won the last competition with getting de plain, which was tattoo. I think I said a noise went tattoo, but yeah. So Andrew Beattie, well done for that. But yeah, so but that could be the front there. Some lovely. Lovely dead wood and stuff there. Live vein here. Yeah, so anyway, so that's how I deal with ash. And while we're talking about just little odd things, which isn't involving pruning particularly, so while we're on the subject of all things small, I don't know why I'm here, there's always the joy of when you come out to a much loved tree and you see the leaves look like that, and they're slowly browning off. The browning works slowly up, moving inwards, right across all the leaves, all have got it, and slowly, and you go, help, because this isn't your normal sort of bug thing. There's something stopping nutrients from the roots getting to the leaves, so the leaves are basically dying off. And after a lot of research and looking around, I've got a horrible feeling this is what they call leaf wilt, and it affects the oaks, and it's some sort of pathogen or bacterial or fungal stuff in the roots. But once it's got it, I have a funny feeling that it's dead meat. I've got this one isolated, and I'm about to do the one thing that I would always do is remove a lot of the leaves, and see if any buds, pigeon down there, anything activates further up. But because the actual issue is not actually in the leaves, but more in the roots, from what I can see, this will have absolutely no effect at all, apart from to hasten the death of the tree. But in its own state, I have to do something. So, and this is sometimes, I mean, I've been working on this tree for 5 years, slowly developing it, and it's really sad. Everything I've read says it's a goner. So what I'll say is, if anyone turns around and says it's not leaf wilt, it's whatever, please respond. The only cures I hear for leaf wilt is more preventive. They pump some sort of chemical into the roots, and in America they show these great big pressurized pumpers doing it, which clearly is not going to happen. And even worse, I mean, this is a little Mame oak, so the root system is very, very small, compact, and probably isn't really built up to sustain or manage that sort of disease, if that's what the problem is. So we will put this into the I'm not very well corner. I will burn all those leaves, kept them separate from everything else. I've had a look at the other oaks, and I haven't seen a spread of it, so we'll keep our fingers crossed. But yeah, if anyone wants to confirm whether or not that was indeed leaf wilt, or it could be because it's a Dawn Isaac pot, and maybe she has some special thing that she's been trying to poison my trees and hasn't told me. Although I can't imagine that, because I buy a lot of her pot. Okay, anyway, from the bottom of the garden, where it's heating up rapidly, and I haven't really done very much apart from talk, point and show, it's farewell. Cheers.